Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor. As the new church year starts, where I am in Michigan, a new season is upon us. I can feel the change from summer to fall. The air at night is cooler. The quality of light in the morning is different. Yet amidst these changes, I feel the absolute steady presence of this community, a presence that has existed for over 150 years now. This congregation welcomes me, you, all of us to gather for some time together, to revive our spirits and connect with one another. One of the deepest ways we connect is to share words of affirmation, our covenant. Will you say these words along with me, with a slight pause between lines, to let the words settle into our hearts a little deeper? Together, let us say, the spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other, to dwell together in peace, to search for truth in love, and to help one another. Welcome. We are gathered for worship.
My grandfather was a gardener, a legendary gardener in the neighborhood, a scandalous gardener who turned a patch, a slender, unnoticeable tract of land, a quarter of a block of public housing grass, the width of a sidewalk, into a vegetable garden, an oasis from a strip of food desert. To this day, I still get a rush at the inviting chill of a produce station as I do at a hardware store or at a Chalice Sparks Choir rehearsal. The brow sweat drips of dreams in spirit, the unmistakable sensation of potential. His soundtrack, Granddaddy's, poured a steady melody of lessons from the black sages of the 1960s and 70s. I can still envisage the thick, cotton, muted gray color of cotton tufts in his hair, which to this day remind me of Morgan Freeman's character in the film Lean on Me. How they swayed to the dulcet lessons Marvin Gaye and John Coltrane and Nina and Ella had been singing for decades now, but still kept feeling fresh. Regularly, those melodies will return to me, even in the present day, in pieces and remnants, especially now that I'm no longer surprised that my heroes aren't immortal, that Oprah's won't always be on at 4, and that even Aretha moves on the same cycle of living as any other. A melody surfaced in seconds after I heard Bill Withers had returned into the earth. For a reason I couldn't explain, the persistent I know from Bill's Ain't No Sunshine When She's Gone. This bit of melody soaked in related memories inside my mind and in thoughts it had no business in. And Granddaddy's hair traveling on the wind of wise soul melodies, and Morgan Freeman portraying the tending tough care of unhoped-on high school lives, came and danced in me when we sang the title song of Lean on Me. as a community together, you and me, to mark Bill's passing. And it was only inevitable that the music would inspire me to offer it new life in the arrangement of the morning hymn the next week. But it was only until it sang in me that I could truly hear the conspiracy of melody and memory afoot. May the wisdom of great artists, the wisdom of gardeners which grow the food of love and perseverance, inspire you to sing this melody with me as a meditation. May its revolutions inspire stillness and breath in your living. May we carry on the revolutions of time and bring new life. And may we be reminded now that love must be an unrelenting conviction that deeply, unflinchingly we dream and breathe and sing and know until it has sprung up in all life. That we hold part of what breathes open the rose. We help to build love's chance at everlasting life.
I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know, 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 I know. I know, 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 I know this rose will open. I know my fear. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know my fear. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know my fear. I know my fear. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. Unfurl its wings. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. Unfurl its wings. I know this rose. I open, 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 fear will open. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open.
Hi everyone, my name is Frankie Moore. I work for Community Action Network, or CAN for short. I've been presenting the last few years at UUAA about our annual holiday gift drive that we do. It serves over 300 local under-resourced children and their families. And your congregation has participated with us the past few years. Actually, last year we've had over 60 kids sponsored. So just wonderful partners. And so I'm just here to quickly share about the program, some minor changes that we're going to make, and also just invite you to participate again this year. So for those who don't know, we host an annual gift drive for all of our students ages 0 through 12th grade. Basically, they fill out a wish list. They put on there some need items and some want items. And each of them gets 4 presents, each about $25 worth in value, so $100 per child. This year, just for practical reasons, safety reasons, only up to 5th grade, so 0 to 5th grade, we'll be filling out the wish list like normal. So they'll still be getting presents to unwrap. But all of our 6th grade and up kids, 6th to 12th grade, will be getting gift cards. So they're excited about it. It eliminates the need for so much storage, since a lot of churches like yours are actually closed. The buildings are closed. So it just helps us out practicality-wise. But I just wanted to say that while COVID has been difficult for many of us, that our families have been particularly hit hard by this. And while holiday gifts might be kind of at the bottom of priority list right now, I think that it really is going to be a program that provides just a lot of normalcy and hope and fun and joy to the end of the year. And I think a lot of our families just really are not worried about that right now, with so many other things to be thinking about. And so we're eager to do the program regardless of the circumstances right now, just to fill in gaps where we can. We're providing all of our wraparound services still. And so this is just one way that we kind of help out. And we truly appreciate the fact that your congregation is still willing to help. Since we're not going to have a sign-up table this year, there is a link that you can go to on our website. So www.canwashington.org/UUAA. And there's a form. It's basically just like an interest form. So you just say like how many kids do you think you might want to sponsor, age range, any information like that, your email and stuff, so that once we get the wish list filled out, we can actually reach back out to you and kind of pass along any information that you might need. And we're just giving you a little bit of a heads up so that you can get together with your family, friends, online groups, church groups, anything like that, and just see if anyone is interested in doing that this year. Like I said, this year's been difficult. Our families have been no exception to that. And so we think that this is just going to be a really wonderful chance for the community to kind of support our neighbors as best as we can. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My information is all on our website. Like I said, www.canwashington.org. I look forward to hearing from you, and I thank you so much for letting me share with you today.
The Curious Garden by Peter Brown. There once was a city without gardens or trees or greenery of any kind. Many people spent their time indoors. As you can imagine, it was a very dreary place. However, there was one boy who loved being outside. Even on drizzly days, while everyone else stayed inside, you could always find Liam happily splashing through his neighborhood. It was on one such morning that Liam made several surprising discoveries. He was wandering around the old railway, as he did from time to time, when he stumbled upon a dark stairwell leading up to the tracks. The railway had stopped working ages ago, and since Liam had always wanted to explore the tracks, there was only one thing for the curious boy to do. Liam ran up the stairs, pushed open the door, and stepped out onto the railway. The first thing he saw was a lonely patch of color. Wildflowers and plants were the last thing he had expected to find up there. But when he took a closer look, it became clear that the plants were dying. They needed a gardener. Liam may not have been a gardener, but he knew that he could help. So he returned to the railway the very next day and got to work. The flowers nearly drowned, and he had a few pruning problems, but the plants patiently waited while Liam found better ways of gardening. As the weeks rolled by, Liam began to feel like a real gardener, and the plants began to feel like a real garden. Most gardens stay in one place, but this was no ordinary garden. With miles of open railway ahead of it, the garden was growing restless. It wanted to explore. The tough little weeds and mosses were the first to move. They popped up further and further down the tracks, and were closely followed by the more delicate plants. Over the next few months, Liam and the curious garden explored every corner of the railway. After After spending his spring and summer and autumn with the garden, Liam's time on the railway was finally interrupted by winter. Heavy blankets of snow fell on the city that season, and for the first time since he'd become a gardener, Liam could not visit the plants. Rather than waste his winter worrying about the garden, Liam spent it preparing for spring. After 3 cold months, the snow finally began to melt, and Liam rolled his new gardening gear over to the railway. Winter had taken a toll on the garden, but thanks to Liam's planning, his handy new tools, and a little help from the sun, the plants soon awoke from their winter sleep. The garden had always wanted to explore the rest of the city, and that spring it was finally ready to make its move. Once again, the tough little weeds and mosses set out first, then popped up further and further along the railway and were closely followed by the more delicate plants. The garden was especially curious about old, forgotten things. A few plants popped up where they didn't belong. Others mysteriously popped up all at once. But the most surprising things that popped up were the new gardeners. Many years later, the entire city had blossomed. But of all the new gardens, Liam's favorite was where it all began. The end.
My name is Quiana Perkins, and I proudly serve UUAA as the coordinator of Congregational Life. Today, I share a personal piece written back in 2019 entitled Conversations in the Garden. For the last 2 years, I've been mourning the loss of my roommate, Shelly. We were an odd couple. We were both fierce mamas, but we also had survivor's grit about us. In the places where we overlapped, we found a lot of joy, and I really miss her. In Shelly's crossing, she gave me an enormous gift: secure housing. As a person who has experienced housing insecurity, the weight of this gift for me and my children cannot be underestimated. Becoming a cooperative homeowner has been intense. I was a condominium homeowner in Minneapolis, but this feels different. Shelly lived in this home for 20 years. Her life and her energy are here too. It was hard for me to even venture into rooms and spaces she occupied after her death in September of 2018. Shelly was a master gardener who loved to be outside. She cultivated a weedy hill into a dynamic wildflower butterfly sanctuary. She carved out a community space where she could meet people and keep watch over the neighborhood. Another gift. Whether it was grief, pure intimidation at the size of the task, I passively made the decision to let the garden be wild and the yard be fallow. But last fall, I knew that time was coming to a close. See, the garden had been making its return known to me. Small green flashes and wind rumbles and morning bird songs. A slow beast awakening, something old returning. A good friend with whom I share spiritual space called me to task, denoting that my lingering on the yard was coming close to rejecting a blessing. That hit me in my heart. That hit me in my spirit. I am a person whose existence is tightly intertwined with blessing as a foundation. I don't have space to neglect blessings, let alone Shelley's memory. So, although hesitant and a little bit afraid, I finally stepped out of my back door. A death cull was lifted. A layer of detritus that was choking us was removed. In my spirit, in Shelley's spirit, in the yard. I heard the garden come fully awake, taking in deep breaths. To open and extend toward the sun, I saw the garden stretch its back, taking in the world with new eyes. I watched it grasp the depth of change that comes with seasons, with resting, and with rising. I witnessed emergence. We took advantage of the thin veil. We all agreed the cycle of rest was warranted, but that time must come to an end. We invited each other into kindness, forgiveness, and grace. We honored that we were all being called to new journeys and to live into new truths, and we permitted ourselves to move forward with brave hearts. All of this clarity delivered in magical butterfly wings and gentle rain. We were finally ready. We were prepared. We blessed and released each other into a new season of growth. Ashe and Amen.
This Sunday, as we gather, we do so as the young ones in our lives are still adjusting to a new learning environment, online apps and platforms and Zoom classes and a whole host of other technology-based modes of learning that were not the norm just a few short months ago. There are losses for our young ones in this, the ability to run around with a group of 30, 40 kids on the playground during recess, the ability to engage in real time with other little ones, peers who are seated right next to you. I know that my children have been navigating these changes, both the sense of loss that the current time evokes, and also the joy of meeting with faces familiar and new in ways that were not previously possible. In a similar vein, this Sunday, if we were meeting together in person, would mark the time when we celebrate the start of our spiritual growth and development program for the new congregational year. We are still doing that. We are still honoring the kickoff and start of all those beautiful activities, many of which continued through the summer, as most of our kids were locally bound or homebound during that time. In honoring of all these transitions that are underway, this intention for learning and growth, which we as adults also hold in our hearts very much. And we are in a time that is inviting much reflection and growth on the parts of everyone, each and every one of us. In that spirit, I want to invite us into a prayer of holding the hopes and dreams of our young ones and truly each and every one of us in our hearts. Would you join me in a period of meditation, prayer, reflection, whatever frame and lens works for you and allows you to step into this time with me, if you would. spirit of life and love, all that we hold dear. We hold in our hearts very closely this month all of those learners who have been beginning academic programs in a way that is unfamiliar and still requiring much adjustment and learning simply to show up, simply to participate and engage. We hold in our hearts little ones that may be feeling a sense of loss and a yearning for more familiar modes of connecting with friends and peers. We hold in our hearts all of those university students who are adjusting to life in our beautiful town, for many of whom it may be their first time in early days still in settling into experiencing the joy of what Ann Arbor can be. We hold much gratitude and appreciation for all of the teachers who have done so much to retool and learn quickly, to adapt and grow in order to continue this time-honored tradition of offering guidance and nurturing and wisdom to those that are in the process of learning. Last but not least, we also hold each and every one of us, for we are lifelong learners and growers, always on a journey of being open-hearted to that which may yet be unformed in us, that is yearning for nurturance and wisdom, inspiration, possibility. We are each that from the day we are born until the day that we die. May we hold the highest hopes and dreams of all of us among us and continue to find ways to all of us of all ages, younger, older, alike, who continue to, with love, with courage, with hope for possibility, step into the transformations and changes of this virtual era that we are in. May learning abound, may wisdom flow freely, may insight and inspiration be there for all who seek it. May it be so. Amen. I'm grateful on this Sunday for my colleague on the staff team, our beloved in community, Quiana Perkins, for sharing her gifts of poetry, art, storytelling, insight with us through her relationship with Shelley and the garden, this image, beautiful image of a garden that lay fallow and was revived, came back to life in such a vibrant and new way, reflecting new possibilities, even as there was continuity with the individual who planted that garden. Something went a little wild, something grew on its own in that fallowness and wildness of in-between time to emerge as something new under the guidance, tutelage, love of a new caretaker. I want us to hold that imagery in our hearts this week. I sat very deeply with the theme of today's service, which is revive, reviving. What are we reviving and renewing in this time that we're in that continues to require so much from us, the very best that each of us has to offer and give one another and the world around us? And I found myself ruminating almost organically on a story with one of my spiritual teachers. I was remembering how when I was an undergraduate at Georgetown University in DC, one of my closest friends in that community was a very conservative, openly gay white man. And this friend of mine, Jeff, we were best of friends. He was at my bachelor party some years later when I embarked on my first marriage. In fact, he helped organize my bachelor party. When we first met, it was quite the loggerheads. Me, quite socially liberal, him, economically conservative, but the economic conservatism spilling over into some social perspectives and views. We would argue, debate, leave feeling very frustrated with one another because his views and perspective were pretty firmly set, as were mine. And we would engage with one another as if we need to convince one another of a better way of seeing life and the world and the civic society we live in and shared. We eventually gave up on trying to change one another. It became too fruitless, too aggravating. And we decided, without even any conversation, simply to accept one another as friends, more than friends, brothers. We became brothers to one another, beloved to one another. Now, in order to do that, we assiduously, for some time, avoided talking about the topics that we knew were really divergent for each of us. We spent a lot of time getting to know one another in other ways of fullness, of authenticity, of integrity, aside from the political and civic matters that we disagreed about, firmly and unequivocally. From that depth of friendship over time, months, if not a year or more, we then found ourselves naturally ribbing one another about our political differences. Him picking on me as being a bleeding heart liberal, me picking on him as being stodgy and conservative and not open to other perspectives. But we would tease one another as brothers teasing one another, not as strangers, not as acquaintances. We would tease one another with no intention or even desire anymore to try and change the other person. We were able to enter into joviality and lightheartedness around our differences because we had already fully accepted one another. I found myself reflecting on this friendship, this way of life, this way of navigating difference that was quite common in earlier eras of life in American culture and American society. What Jeff and I navigated in those undergraduate years with one another was not uncommon or unheard of. People had friendships across a variety of places on the political spectrum. People entered into loving and beautiful marriages, holding very different, divergent social and political views. As I shared all of this with one of my spiritual teachers, I found myself holding this longing of what's happened to us as a culture and a people, where this thing that we knew how to do and did as an extension of grace and graciousness and the embodiment of love now routinely does not happen. We quiz and self-select very quickly. Where are you in your social political outlooks and views? Now, if it's too different, maybe I won't invest the time to get to know you, to spend time with you, to honor your dignity, to see the wisdom and brilliance that resides in your life experience. No, we're too different. It's not worth the time or the trouble or the effort. It's a sadness to me because all of us over a certain age, I'm definitely in that group, have known a time in the life of this nation where friendships across difference was not just possible, not something that had to be worked at, but something that routinely occurred. My beloveds, my friends, if there's anything I'm holding in my heart that is yearning for revival, for rebirth, renewal, it is this. this thing that we know how to do, that is not a stretch goal for any of us. We know how to press the pause button on fundamental differences that can be a rift in a relationship. We know how to press the pause button on that for the sake of love, for the sake of community, for the sake of striving together to build and work on goals that benefit all of us as a town, as a community, as a nation. I'm not speaking about anything that we don't know how to do, but I am speaking about something that is in need of renewal and revival, a recommitment from each of us. Discarding others because of difference is possible. And in fact, in the invective-filled culture in which we currently live, it is the norm. It is routinely done. And yet I want to hold out that it is optional. And what I mean by optional is that it is a choice. It is one option among many. There are other choices, other options, community-minded choices and options, love-minded choices and options, relationship-minded choices and options that we can make, that we know how to make, that many of us who are alive today have plenty of experience making those choices at earlier times and in different contexts of our lives. Our times need a renewal to that commitment to live with difference without needing to change another person, without needing to reject them because we have some outlooks that are different. The future needs it from us. If we cannot come together relationally, communally, most importantly as a nation, how can we find a way to address the tremendous challenges that the human species needs to begin addressing and speaking to more clearly? The challenges of the environment that we're seeing the impacts of through hurricane and wildfires in our nation. Our planet and our species need the very best of us. And this is one of the gifts we can give. The ability to step into unconditioned love. And we practice it together. In a community such as ours, Unitarian Universalist, by and large, we agree on a whole heck of stuff, a whole lot of stuff. We're a values-based community, an ethically oriented community in which a whole bunch of stuff is already in clear agreement and synchronicity. From that place, we're a wonderful, wonderful group of individuals with which to practice the extension of loving acceptance. Not conditioned upon, wait, you need to first change before I'll accept you in my circle of beloved, my circle of those who are worthy of care. We, as a spiritually oriented, ethically oriented community, are one of the places in American society where we can, with great safety, practice this skill that the world around us needs more of. I invite you, my dear ones, those beloved in my heart, which is each and every one of you watching this. If you're watching this, you are dear to me and beloved by me. Let us revive and renew the artfulness of loving relationship, which is always built on a foundation of loving acceptance. May it be so. As we prepare to close out our time together this Sunday, I want to invite you, if you have found being in community together to be meaningful, if you have found an ongoing connection here that is adding beautiful value to your life, our community needs your generous and gracious support. Please go to uuaa.org/giving. And we invite you to donate as generously as you're able to the ongoing ministries and programs and activities of this congregation, your community. In addition, we continue our time of community building together each Sunday at the conclusion of our Sunday service through what we call social hour, although it's not necessarily an hour, it's some social time together to connect with one another. You can join us directly at the conclusion of the service by going to uuaa.org/social hour, and you'll be taken directly into that space. If you would now, I invite you into a spirit of meditation, prayer, reflection as we close out the time today. As we go forth from this time of being in community together, may we do so holding in our hearts the energy of all in this community that are touched by this community, that are a part of this community. May we continue to hold them in our hearts, knowing that we are connected to a deeper love that flows well and runs all through us and around us and among us. The times we are in are difficult and need a lot from us, and none of us is doing that alone, that navigating, unless we choose to do so. We are held in the loving embrace of this community, deeply, fully, and well, until we return, until we are together again. Go forward knowing that. Go forward holding that in your heart and allowing it to buoy your spirits and lift your spirits in the week ahead, knowing that there are companions on this journey that are cheering you on, wanting you to be the very best self that you can be, wanting you to make a positive impact, whether it is small or great, in whatever way you can, embodying that love, that loving acceptance of another, the unconditioned acceptance and friendship that we can extend to another as fully as you can, as deeply and well as you can, until we meet again. Go in peace, my beloveds. You're dear to me. I love you. Be well.